Okay, this is part two to vocations. Now we're here with Father Matthew and Father Patrick. It's nice to have you on here, Father Matthew.
Thank you very much.
So, what order are you for?
I'm with the Legionaries of Christ, and I'm
Mhm.
here in the Washington, D.C. area, in Maryland, precisely. So,
So, how did you get started? Like, when did you start discerning your vocation?
for me, it was kind of, there were different stages. The first one was I was in high school, and I was really kind of like not the kid you'd expect in some ways, because I was had kind of weird ideas. And then at
Mhm.
one point, I had this one experience. I really understood that Jesus was real, and that I had to base my life on him. And from that, I really started becoming very active. I really started, going to mass, the weekly mass at my high school, which was optional, and I really started trying to look for things to help my faith grow. And I did that for about a year and a half. Then I went to college, local state college, and studying engineering, which is like my family tradition, at least on one side of the family. And studying engineering, I was like the sacristan. I was there at all the Catholic events on campus at this point. But I was still kind of thinking, maybe if I'm done college, I'll think about it for a year, But I'm not was really not thinking about the vocation. Then one time I was listening to John Paul II. It was a presentation on World Youth Day 2000, trying to get us all to go to World Youth Day 2003 in Toronto, and and when the Pope said, "Be not afraid to be the saints in the new millennium," it just hit me, and like I knew at that moment that God wanted me to be a priest. I just knew, and I with that I knew some people involved in Regnum Christi, kind of affiliated with the Legion. So the idea of possibly the Legion came out, but it wasn't like, oh, I definitely call it the Legion. I decided to visit, and just when I first walked in the door, I just had kind of this peace and like, this is where God wants me to be,
Mhm.
and that's really, and then after the emotional stuff, the intellectual as well, because I was always kind of, from that first moment of conversion, I always had a very strong kind of attachment to the Pope. And then that first weekend I went to visit, what was the video that they watched? They had us watch. We had it was like a 1 hour video of like the Pope mentioning Regnum Christi at all his audiences. When you go to like a papal audience, the Pope will mention like the groups that are there, and then they'll all cheer. And it was basically, it wasn't just that, but a huge chunk of this video was basically when he called out Regnum Christi and all of them cheering and the Pope looking happy about it and everything. So that was and I think that was something that got me intellectually. And then I really, joined and really fell in love almost to a large extent after I joined, because I didn't know, wasn't super familiar with the Legion beforehand. I knew some people kind of involved, but I wasn't like, somebody who had involvement with the Legion for a decade or anything.
Right. I know that the Legionaries of Christ is like, it takes, how long does it take to be ordained?
It varies. For myself, it was 12 and a half years. So I joined in 2001, and I was the summer of 2001. I was ordained December 2013. The biggest difference for us is we do like the novitiate, which all religious do. So we do that for 2 years, and then we do most diocesan priests do like 1 year out in the parish or something, and we do 3 usually. I end up doing 4 because I finished my third year, and the superiors are kind of like, we don't have anybody to replace you right now. Can you kind of like do another year? And I'm like, okay. I mean, I took a vow of obedience here. I'm fine with that. Uh, and so I end up doing 4. And so it just varies. I mean, and then some people do like a master's degree before they're like a master's degree in philosophy before they're ordained. I did not. So it really varies, and it's all over the place, anywhere from like 10 years to 15, really.
Yeah, I heard it could be very long. Like, I know that I've talked to another seminarian who goes to Legionaries of Christ, and it took him like 13 years already.
Yeah, yeah, and it just varies. I mean, I was just under 13, so it's not like.
Right. So what do you usually do in Legionaries of Christ? What is your daily activities?
So my daily activities and the daily activities of most legionnaires are a little different, but the main thing we do is our main goal is to help lay people become active apostles in the church.
Mhm.
And we do that through various different things. We do that, you know, a lot of times through like personal accompaniment, things like spiritual direction, helping train people in doing apostolate. We do that through dynamic spiritual experiences like a retreat or like a pilgrimage or anything like that. And then we do it through helping people do those apostolates. So we have, sometimes we'll take a group of high school kids on missions, or we'll do things like that. I work more kind of a lot in general behind the scenes in a certain extent. Um, I'm I'm studying part time, and then I'm doing some writing for the community for different projects that we need kind of written. So I end up spending more time in my office alone than most legionaries. Uh, whereas and so that's the kind of things the Legion does. So with that also like schools and retreat centers. Here in DC, the two main things we have is Our Lady of Bethesda Retreat Center and Divine Mercy University, which is a Catholic graduate school of psychology and counseling, really trying to imbue the Catholic vision of the human person into the fields of psychology. So it's not kind of a secular view of the human person or a view of the human person that's very, reduced, but the whole person, like John Paul II proposed in all his writings.
Right. So, Father Patrick, you and Father Matthew know each other, and you're in a program together. What is that program that you're in?
So it's an STL, or a license in sacred theology, with the emphasis on the new evangelization. This is up at Sacred Heart Major Seminary in Detroit. Father Matthew has been, I think, in for a couple of years. I just started over the summer. So I've only had one summer experience so far. We just finished actually early to mid-August. But it's been a wonderful experience with some great professors and teachers up there. So I'm just starting, but like I said, it's been a wonderful experience.
How long is this program for?
It's generally, this particular program is kind of a new blended format for priests, that they know priests have their own assignments, whether it's in a parish or they're in the religious community. So it's, as Father mentioned, it's part-time. So what you do is you go each summer for 4 summers, and you take a series of course. Generally, we took, I think, 8 credits over the course of 5 weeks, so it's pretty intensive. But then during normal semesters, like for the fall semesters, we're going to start one, I think, next week. For each of those semesters, you just take one online course, and that way you can continue your normal assignments within your community or at the parish, and then you just, you do your online course, generally just one course per semester. So it certainly is doable for the priest, and it's a great way to, again, to stay fresh with our continuing education, to be formed. Again, we want to be more effective evangelizers as well, preaching the truths of our faith to the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds wonderful, that class. So what are some of your guys' funny seminarian stories? I know that there must be a lot of them, but is there one in particular you enjoy?
Go ahead, Father Matthew.
I'm trying to think. I mean, it's super funny, and nothing came to mind. I mean, I always enjoyed when I first started. It was kind of like the, we'd always go hiking once a week and go out into the hills nearby and that. But I think sometimes the funny ones are, you kind of look back in hindsight. At least for us, it's on the 15th of September is the Feast of Our Lady of Sorrows, which is kind of one of our patronal feasts in the Legion. And that's in the northern hemisphere of the world. That's when all the novices receive their cassocks. So it's always interesting that like one or two of them will always like put it all together wrong the next morning. And, like they'll come out of their cubicle, and like their band the band around the waist will be on wrong, or like like things like that are just sometimes a little funny.
Yeah. I have to say, that reminded me as well, just to, when we have our the interest in novitiate, it's at the EWTN televised Mass too. So sometimes, I know, Father Matthew, you're mentioning whether it be the new novice doing that, but sometimes it's the friar who's putting on the habit for the first time, for the inexperienced friar putting on the habit of another friar. Sometimes they get that wrong, the rosary on the opposite side, or the head comes through like one of the arm sleeves, or that, and it's on television, So I think that's been a humorous moment at times. That's something that comes to mind.
Yeah, see, we do it a little different, because we do it. We give out the cassock the night before, like on the vigil, and then everyone makes a visit to Mary. We trust the vocation to them, and then you put it on the next morning, kind of, in your own cell, everyone's usually assigned like a second-year novice to kind of like help them out. But sometimes some guys are like, I'm gonna try and do this myself, and you know.
Father Patrick, have you ever met Mother Angelica?
Yes, actually, when I entered the community, that was after she had her stroke. When I visited in 2001, it was before she had her major stroke. But after I entered, she had already had that. But however, over the years, we were able, usually a couple times a year, we would go to Hansfield, the shrine, and we'd meet with the sisters. And so there would be several times we'd meet with Mother, but she didn't speak much, because the strokes affected her communication skills. However, as a priest, my first assignment actually was there at the Shrine of the Blessed Sacrament. I was assigned there for 2 years. And our priests would alternate, generally on Sundays. One of us would go in and we'd have Mass for Mother in her room and to be able to give her Holy Communion. That was a wonderful blessing to have. So yes, I have met Mother a good number of times. I haven't had any in-depth conversations because of the stroke that she had, but yeah, I have had the blessing certainly of meeting with her and being with her plenty of times. And what an inspiring life.
Yeah, that's really awesome you have.
Mm-hmm.
Father Matthew, don't the Legionaries of Christ usually go to Rome at some point?
Yeah, so right now, all of us study theology and philosophy in Rome. Or I should say 95% of us, because we have a few who study in Brazil, but everybody goes either for philosophy or theology to Rome to their studies. I myself did it for theology. I was there 2010 to 2013 studying theology there. I got to see. I was there. I was in St. Peter's Square when Pope Francis was announced. I remember I was watching on Twitter, and I was supposed to be writing some kind of paper for a class, and then just would flip back and forth on my computer to Twitter every few minutes. One time I flip to Twitter, and like everything on my screen is like white smoke, Habemos Papa, Habemos Papa. So I just like jumped up and I ran out, and we had a signal in our house. It was like, I think it was 5 bells or something. Usually we'd only use like up to like 2 or 3 or something. It was 5 bells. That means the Pope was elected. So I jumped up and I rang the bell like the 5 times. Then I ran off so I would get in the first bus that was leaving from near our house, because I wanted to get on the bus to get to the metro, because then your car's not going to get in there at that point once it's been announced. So I wanted to get into the metro via metro.
How long were you in Rome for?
So 3 years. I was there summer 2010 to summer 2013.
Is there anything you miss about it?
I think it's very nice always to be close to Pope, and it's like, it's like, oh, Sunday I want to go on to Los Angeles, and there's a lot of beautiful things as far as like the art and the churches and a lot of the saints' bodies that are there, and you can go and pray, where the saint is actually buried, and not just pray to the saint, because there is that union in the Catholic Church between the spirit, the body and the spirit. So those type of things is what I really miss. I mean, that you have all those opportunities around, whereas, in DC, there's no real like saints buried here in DC as far as I know.
So where do we find you guys? Do you guys have okay, Father Matthew, you have a Twitter, right?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, frmatthewlc. The Legionaries are on like legionvocations.com or legionariesofchrist.org, radiumchrist.org. All of those work, and you can find out about us there if you're thinking about the vocation. And I presume Father Patrick has something too.
Yes, our community can be found at franciscanmissionaries.com. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those as well. But the website is franciscanmissionaries.com.
And you guys have an Instagram too, right?
We do. Uh-huh.
Yep, so everyone that's watching, you guys should definitely check them out. They have the best social media sites, especially the Franciscans and Father Matthew. I really enjoy your guys' stuff.
Well, thank you.
So what's both of your guys' favorite prayer?
I was asked this probably like 5, 6 years ago, and it was for like Cleveland people or something because it was doing a vocation event. Like they have the fest, which is like the youth event in Cleveland. And at that point, I said, well, it's like Lectio Divina meditation on the Gospels, and they're like, well, like how do you do that? And like we want to videotape us you saying the prayer, and I'm like, okay, well then let's just go with a simple prayer. But on it, and you can find this online. It's still up there. You really have to search for it. But I think really for me that's it. Kind of that Lectio Divina, that kind of meditation on the Gospels on the Bible, is really the prayer that I appreciate the most personally.
As far as me, the single particular prayer that I go to most often, especially during time of need, is the Memorare, asking Our Lady for help. Certainly, that's the one I find myself going to most often, going to Our Lady, particularly with that prayer, and then just trying to be more conscious of being grateful as well. Thanking the Lord. When there's so many graces that we receive throughout the day, just trying to be more grateful in that. I'd say the Memorare certainly is probably the one I go to most often.
That one's a really great one.
It is.
Oh, I forgot to mention, another website you guys should check out is www.whynotpriest.org. So I'll have to put that link in the bio too.
All right.
Excellent.
Okay, so let me think. What are your guys' favorite animals?
Well, it depends what you mean. I mean, to me, one of the sacrifices of joining a religious life was I had to give up. I had to leave my pet dog with my parents. So
Right.
I mean, that's that like as far as like I'd actually want with me would be probably a dog. What other animals are nice to watch on like documentaries, and that would be a tough one, which would be best there. But definitely to be with me would be a dog.
Sure. I'd have to agree as far as just my upbringing. We always had dogs growing up. We always had German Shepherds for the most part. So those are the dogs that I certainly would have connected most with growing up. And even when I entered, we had the friars. We had a dog as well. So we no longer have one, but we did have one. So probably out of all the animals, probably the dog as well. I see you got yours there.
And we see your dog jump you up there.
Little, look at the camera.
Yeah.
His name is Tristan.
Okay. He looks a little smaller than the dogs we had.
Yeah, he's very tiny. He's a good dog, though. He's a Pomeranian and Shih Tzu mix.
Oh, okay. My sister has a dog about that size, but he's white, like pure white. I think he's a Bichon Frise or something like that. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it does. I think that's about all the time we have. Thank you guys for joining me.
Well, God bless you. Thank you very much for having me.
So everyone, please check out your guys' social media, and please keep us in your prayers.
God bless you.
God bless.
God bless you.
Bye.
Bye.
Adios.